Good morning, good morning. Hope you're very well. Thank you for joining us today. If you are here, hopefully it's because you are interested in hearing more about a new report that's being released soon called Beyond Representation, How Diverse is the Charity Sector? I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes to allow people time to join and then we'll get into the discussion. So again, good morning if you're joining us. We're just waiting for allowing a couple of minutes people to finish grabbing their coffees and teas and join us. This chat today that we are here for is about a new report that's being released soon called Beyond Representation, How Diverse is the Charity Sector? And I will explain more in a couple of minutes once we've just given another 30 seconds or so for people to join us. I am conscious it's still the morning and people need coffee and tea. So yes, we should join just in about 30 seconds or so and get cracking. And just the last time before we get started, good morning and hello. You are hopefully joining because you're here to find out more about a new report that's being launched next month called Beyond Representation, How Diverse is the Charity Sector? I'll just give it 10 more seconds and then we will get started. So please do settle in and get comfy. Okay, I think let's get going. So for the last time, good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I hope you are very well. You are here today to hear more about a new report that's being released next month called Beyond Representation and How Diverse is the Charity Sector. My name is Susie Mills. I am a co-founder and CEO of Oxygen Communications. We are an ethical design agency, recently certified B Corp, specialising in accessible design and building eco-friendly websites. The reason I'm here today moderating this discussion is the two organisations that have created this report are two of our longest standing clients. So I'm delighted to be here today to facilitate this conversation. So who are they? What is the report about? So Oxford HR is a leading global global leadership consultancy dedicated to recruiting and supporting leaders in the social and environmental impact space. And Charity People are the UK's leading recruiter specifically for the UK charity sector. Both are B Corps. Both have been around for over 30 years, so they know a thing or two about what they're talking about. And so the report. So this quantitative and qualitative piece of research aims to gather in-depth insights into the state of the EDI sector within the UK and Europe and experiences within it currently, to understand barriers to improvement and to also encourage reflections on sector-wide change. So no small feat here. But to talk to us today about this research, I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Grace Mansa-Owusu, who is an organisational psychologist at Oxford HR. Good morning, Grace.
Good morning, Susie, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Great, thank you. Great to have you here. Go ahead. And yes, so why, just quickly, why you're interested in this research from your point of view would be great to hear, please.
Thank you. So this research has been on my mind for a little while. Before Oxford HR, I did work within the charity sector for over 3 years. And it was always been interesting to me in general, not just charity sector, all the sectors I work in, to see how inclusive and diverse they are. One of the reasons why I think it worked well for ourselves and Charity People to work together is because we've been connected for a while. We do work together on different kind of projects, and it kind of works because both of our sets of values are very similar, and mainly because we want to be a force for good. And the work that we do as a leadership consultancy at Oxford HR, we want to be a force for good. We want to understand what's really going on the ground for a lot of our clients, and we want to be able to help them to be able to do the work that they do in the best way possible all over the world. And to do that, we generally do try to embed equity in how our processes work. And that's not something that is one-dimensional. It does grow, it does change. We do try to adapt to different trends and what's going on globally as well. So that's something we're constantly trying to learn and to do better at. So basically for us, it was something that we really wanted to drive and really be at the forefront of.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think we'll talk a bit more about the actual research itself, I think, with you in a bit. But thank you. That's great. And then I'd also like to introduce Liv Carr, who is the People and Operations Director at Charity People. Good morning, Liv. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Morning, Susie. Morning, Grace. So hi, everybody, and thanks for joining. I'm Liv. I'm the People and Operations Director at Charity People. I'm also chair of our internal EDI committee. Before working at Charity People, I worked in the charity sector for about 10 years, so I have an interest from that area as well. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to join the discussion with Grace and Susie today and share why Charity People are proud to be part of this really important research initiative in partnership with Oxford HR. I think firstly, as someone who works in a people role, and I think about, the real challenges and opportunities in recruitment and people strategy, was really keen to collaborate with Grace and Oxford HR to help shape this research. So by actively contributing to the research, I wouldn't just be observing the diversity trends, I could actually help shape them. And then as a recruitment company partnering with so many brilliant, fantastic charities, Charity People, want to help our clients find brilliant people who will have an impact in their role. I think part of doing that really well involves understanding representation gaps in the sector so we can source and support underrepresented talent. So, recruitment's more about just filling roles for us, doing EDI well and impactfully. It's not just about ticking boxes and meeting regulations. It's about creating a genuinely inclusive environment and about building partnerships that make a difference. And, that's exactly what this research is all about.
Fantastic, thank you. And let's get into question one then, because you've kind of touched on it here, but it'd be great to expand on it a bit, Liv. And when we first started talking about this, I thought it was really interesting that, in some areas, not in all, but in some areas, Oxford HR and Charity People could be seen as competitors. So, how did this report come about? Like that you working together to create this for the kind of greater good of the industry, the sector, if you will, rather than sort of looking at your individual organisations' operational day to day.
Yeah, well, definitely we could be seen as competitors, but Oxford HR's values and commitment to social responsibility align really closely with ours. So partnering with Oxford HR just made perfect sense. Like us, they're a B Corp. Grace has already touched on that, which means they've made a commitment to using business for a force for good and to help shape a more inclusive and equitable recruitment landscape. I think, also worth talking about values. We share values around integrity, collaboration, and inclusivity. And we both believe in the power of data to drive meaningful change. So when it comes to EDI and social impact, we don't want to just talk about change. We want to act and do what we can to influence in a positive way, not just in a policy, but, in behavior and culture. And we believe this research can really help us do that. So I think going back to earlier this year, Grace and I were talking about this actually earlier. We were thinking about, when the seeds for this project were planted, Charity People was having some really thoughtful conversations around EDI with the team at Oxford HR. And one thing we kept coming back to again and again, also conversations internally at Charity People as well, was around how difficult it was to access demographic data about who's working in the charity sector, especially at different levels of seniority. So there's some really excellent data that's available for board and leadership roles, but other than small pockets of data that we found, there's a real gap when it comes to understanding the fuller picture across the sector. And that really matters, I think, because, without that insight, it's hard to know where those barriers are or how to break them down. And we're fortunate to have access to an extensive network and diverse network of candidates and contacts across the sector. So that gave us a unique opportunity and a responsibility, I think, to contribute meaningfully to this research. But, this research is not just about data. It's about understanding how people experience equity, diversity, and inclusion, not just in policy, but in practice. And we wanted to hear the real stories, the real experiences, and gather rich, in-depth insights that could form organizational strategy, policy recommendations, and ultimately sector-wide improvements. So I suppose to finish here on this point, EDI, it's really inseparable from the charity sector's purpose, isn't it? Charities exist to tackle inequality and empower communities, and that mission depends on equity and representation within their own organisations.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think that's a sort of a perfect segue really into my second question, which is to you, Grace, if that's okay, which is, and how have you approached this research? So, Liv mentioned about the kind of the sort of in-depth and sort of insights that you've gained, and what's been your approach to this?
Thank you for that brilliant answer, Liv. And I think that does lead in really nicely to this question, which is how did we do it? So coming from a psychology background, anyone that has studied kind of like research methods for years and years knows that we need to do things that kind of give us the best chance of having some kind of representation in the data that we collect. So we tried to use a mixed method design. So what that means is we did, as Susie says, quantitative and qualitative methods. So we ran a survey that looked at demographic characteristics of people in the sector, and that covered things like your protected characteristics such as age, gender, ethnicity, country lived in, sexuality, disability, all of those things. But then it also had a few other questions around organizational EDI. So if people are aware of EDI policies and practices within their organizations, whether they'd rate that the leadership was knowledgeable on EDI and all sorts of other things, and whether people had witnessed discrimination or microaggressions. And then we also ran 10 in-depth interviews with leaders in the sector around the topic of EDI. So how it's enacted within their organization, how they see EDI as a whole within the sector, and what challenges there were to embedding EDI internally as well as within the rest of the sector, and recommendations as well. So with those 10 interviews, we've done in-depth analysis and we're in the process of going through that. And then with the survey, that gave us a little bit more of a broader picture about what Liv actually said around who is where and what are they doing and how did they get there. So lots of different aspects and levels to the data and the information, and it's very, very rich. In fact, we could probably have like 5 different volumes depending on what people wanted to know, but we're going to try and keep the main report as concise as possible, but actually also answering the question.
Thank you. Because I just wanted to touch on that as well, because I think you did have a phenomenal response to the survey, didn't you? Which, I mean, just goes to show how much people are interested in this, how much they want to learn about it, and that this kind of the timing and the need for this kind of data and report, I think, is really is important, and it's now. So it was definitely. And just any sort of any pros or cons to the way the research has been done? Anything you might do differently?
As with every type of research, there's always a level of, you've got to be careful and got to be cautious about how you draw conclusions. So we know, for example, with questionnaire design, there's a lot of disadvantages that could come up. For example, people not answering the questions truthfully could be one of them. Also, there's social desirability as well. And then also with questionnaires, people are likely to answer them if they already have a vested interest in the topic. So that's also another area that we need to be aware of. It might not be that the 400 responses are fully responsive of the whole sector. I mean, it can't be. That is a small number in comparison to how many people are in the sector in Europe. However, it gives us a snapshot as to what's really going on, how people are feeling, what challenges there are, and what recommendations that we could use to do better. And then with the interviews as well, because there was only 10 people that we interviewed from a broad range of organisations across the sector of the full purpose sector, I think we got a lot of rich responses. However, it's in no way representative. However, it does give us an idea of, again, what's going on, what people think, what some of the challenges could be. So combined, we hope that we've covered some of those disadvantages, but again, we can't be 100%, 100% positive in everything. There's always going to be drawbacks, and we are aware of that. It's very normal in the research processes.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. And just before I move on to question 3, I mentioned earlier, apologies, but if you do have any questions or comments, please do pop them in the chat. We will have some time at the end, hopefully, to talk to them. And if not, we will pick up on any questions and come back to you directly. But please do pop them in the chat box as we go through, and we'll try and get to them at the end. Okay, so question 3 is to you both, in fact, and Liv, maybe let's start with you. Is what do you hope this research will mean for the charity and non-profit sectors?
Yeah, so I mean, we hope that this research will benefit the entire sector. It was a really unique chance for us to gather insights, challenge assumptions, and listen to a range of voices, and ultimately learn. But I think it's really important to say that this report, it's really not about pointing fingers or ranking progress or to solely highlight challenges. The research, it's designed to spark reflection, share good practice, and help all of us take the next steps in building more inclusive and representative workforces. So I think to say, I think both Grace and I would both say, be honest, be realistic about what you can achieve and what you can learn. I think that's the main thing really from, I think that charities could learn.
Yeah, and same to you, Grace, please.
It's really just this, we know that this research has been done in different guises in different organisations, but as Liv said, one of the catalysts is that there was not much to go on before, and we just hope that this sparks more research, more in-depth research, a lot more collaboration within different organisations to come together to do more, to find out more information about the sector and the progress as well. From the actual interviewees, there's a few things that were said in the interviews. Currently, someone said that there's very little available at the moment, which is true in terms of data, demographic data in the sector. One other person said that research should be able to compare and contrast best practice as well across the sector, and others wanted it to help them to be able to kind of solve some of their specific questions around inclusion and diversity within the sector and where they find that diverse pool and how they can kind of encourage early careers interaction within the sector as well. So there's lots of different areas that focused on, but I think the majority of people realised that there was a gap in the data.
Yeah, and it's really, I think it's when we were talking about it the other day as well, it's really about these shared learnings, isn't it? It's about sort of sharing between organisations, between colleagues, sort of, understanding where the sort of, like you say, the gaps are. But like you said earlier, Liv, not to be kind of, berating organisations or people about that, but to sort of facilitate, improvement and to sort of, encourage that with this sort of open dialogue, I guess. But yeah.
I think it says a lot. Okay. The organisation that we approached for the interviews, because this is taking, an hour out of someone's day. Okay. Every single person was really keen to do it. And I think that really says a lot.
I agree. Yeah. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully, when the research comes out, though, you'll have a great response to it. And so, on that note, when is the research due out, Grace?
The $1 million question. We hope that we can get our research out in November. So next month, watch this space. And we do have, if you are interested, there are some ways that you can get hold of the report.
Yeah, and Liv, how can charities get hold of this once it comes out?
Well, we actually will put a link in the comments, I think, to the report. So that's where we also have. I think it's actually on the ticker at the bottom there, the webpage where you can go. That's where people can get updates and share any comments, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, well, just to reiterate those next steps. So the report will be out mid-November, an exact date TBC, but mid-November. It will be launching with a knowledge festival, so a discussion, a webinar similar to this, and that will go into the actual findings in more detail. And in the meantime, if you did want to sign up for to be ready to receive it on that mailing list, as Liv just mentioned, the QR code's on the screen now, and there is a link in the chat as well for you to be able to sign up to that. Just to be aware, when you do sign up to that, you will also be signed up to the Oxford HR and Charity People mailing list, but you can untick that box if you don't wish to receive those as well. And also, if you have any questions, obviously, please do reach out to either Grace or Liv, either through Oxford HR and Chatty People websites or directly on LinkedIn. We're super excited to get this report out in the world. So yeah, thank you for listening today. Thank you, Liv and Grace, for joining us. And yeah, any sort of further comments afterwards, we will follow up with individually. But thank you everyone for joining this morning. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.